discussing research I did last year when I was on long PDL, and it's a continuation of research I've been doing for a while based on police corruption as organised crime. One of the topics that I've been looking into that has started to come out of research into organised crime is career paths of people who participate in organised crime and how they succeed. And this is a particular study of probably the most famous of the corrupt police in Queensland, Jack Herbert. This is Jack and his wife Peggy. Peggy's up there because Peggy was actually intimately involved in doing a lot of the corruption that Jack was establishing. The point of the research is to find out how Jack Herbert, who was the bagman of the Fitzgerald Inquiry and corruption's examination of the joke corruption network of the Queensland Police, how Jack Herbert succeeded in creating a very elaborate and long-lasting network. And the point of learning about that is to find out how we can then identify future successful organised crime members, corrupt police, and plan on ways of predicting their success or preventing their success. So the type of research I've been doing with my colleagues, especially Robin Keast from the business faculty, is social network analysis of corrupt police networks. And I'm going to be showing you social network analysis maps using Analyst Notebook later in the presentation. The reason we've been conducting this sort of research is there's a lot of work on organised crime, there's a lot of work on police corruption. There's very little work on how the networks actually operate and how they succeed. The work we've done in the past is mostly been on the Fitzgerald Inquiry, which happened in 1988 and 89 in Queensland, and looked into the corruption network originating in the licensing branch, Queensland's licensing branch of the Queensland Police Force as it was then. We were plotting the networks, their interrelations with other people, to examine them to see how the networks were operating. Today what we're going to be looking at is what's called an ego network, where the networks are based around one individual, and that of course is Jack Herbert. The work that we're doing will extend on, and we've already begun doing work on the Wood Inquiry from New South Wales, and we'll also be working on the Kennedy Inquiry from Western Australia to do exactly the same work. I have to say that the other two states had very, very different styles of corruption networks. All of them were very long lasting, they were multi-decade long, but they ran in a different manner and they had different jurisdictions. That was in some ways decided by the jurisdiction that was created within the police force structure. So, how did the corruption networks operate and survive is our key overriding research question. Now, the reason we're looking at it from an organised crime point of view is we actually see police corruption networks as organised crime. The definition of organised crime generally is 3 or more people involved in illicit activity on an ongoing basis for the purposes of production of profit or power. Well, clearly, if you've got a 4-decade-long organisation that is making money illegally through corruption, you've maintained it through multiple layers of people, and you're using that position for both have power, exploitative power over other people and to make personal profit. This falls well and truly within the definition of an organised crime group. Therefore, we can also use all the theories about organised crime and apply them to corrupt police. So what the research we have done so far has been looking at is there any difference between the nature of how police corruption networks are set up because police are operating within a structure compared to organised crime groups who are operating on their own? So they're operating outside of any sort of structure, they're creating their own structure. What we've discovered so far is that there doesn't seem to be very much relationship between police structure and the organised network structure, other than the jurisdiction that they're given within their own branch creates the opportunities for the monopolistic power they can use to make money. So if you are in the vice squad, the powers, the monopolistic power you have over vice gives you a particular opportunity to make money from the purveyors of vice. If you are in, I don't know, a transport squad, for example, your jurisdiction would change. But the ranks of the people within the branch itself don't tend to dictate who has the power over the network. The power over the network comes from your performance and your, if you like, your merit selection within the network itself. Oh, okay. Yeah. The work that I'm doing in this particular exercise is based on 2 articles by Carlo Morselli from Montreal. Carlo is one of the leading researchers in network analysis of organised crime. And he was looking for something to research when he was in his PhD days, and he needed a data set, as we all do. And suddenly occurred to him that he had a data set on his shelf. He had the autobiography of Sammy Gravano from the New York Mafia. I thought, well, here's the data set, what can I do with it? I'm going to look at his life, I'm going to see how he succeeded. And what he discovered was that Sammy the Bull operated within a particular culture of the Italian mafia in New York. They work on a patron-client basis. So it's layers and layers of patrons and clients. When you're at the bottom of any network, so say for example, you're in a football team. You know everyone else in the football team. You don't have any knowledge that anyone else in the football team doesn't have. So you have no competitive advantage over the other people. If you're the manager of that team, you have special knowledge because you're bringing in the knowledge from outside into the team. Even the coach has another set of specialist knowledge that they can provide. They're in a particular position. They're basically, you can regard them as brokers. The same thing happens in an organised crime network. In the Italian mafia, it was almost like a franchise operation. There were capos who ran groups. The people within the group knew each other, they knew what they were each doing. The capos had a new relationship to the people above. So they had specialist knowledge. They were the patrons and they were the brokers. The way Sammy the Bull Gravano moved up in his career is he used patrons. He learned who the patrons were, cultivated relationships with the patrons, and through the patrons met the people at the next level up. The people at the next level up can give you new opportunities that you don't have within your own group. So his technique was to create his own relationships with the people above his patron and create new patron-client relationships. So he was continually bypassing people to move up the ranks of the mafia. So that was his particular method of success. When he got to the very top, he could change the way he related with people. As you're moving up and you're building your business, if you like, the more people you can have contact with, the better, because it increases the number of opportunities you have. You don't have any truly monopolistic power in this situation, so you need to find as many opportunities as you can. But you're operating in an illicit activity, so the more people you know, the higher the likelihood you're going to get caught. There's no actual long-term advantage in knowing a lot of people. True success comes from when you have a monopoly of power at the top. You don't need to know everybody because you're telling other people what to do. You become completely essential to the network to operate. So people protect you. You can be arms off, hands off from what's going on in the frontline operations, but they can't dispose of you out of the network. And that's eventually the position that Sammy the Bull got into. He was at the top, and the power that he particularly had was he was the small group of people who decided who could be killed and who could not. So you become essential. This is Howard Lauchs, or Mr. Nice. He was the most successful importer of marijuana into Great Britain. Morselli studied his autobiography as well, and he found a completely different way that he succeeded. He succeeded through reputation. Unlike this structure that was there in the Italian mafia, he was in a loose network of people who continually changed. He was meeting suppliers, he was meeting sellers, and he was a middleman. And he didn't control anyone, he didn't exploit anyone. He built his career out of his reputation as the reliable person who never failed to pay, who always compensated people for their loss, and could be guaranteed to never talk. People wanted to do business with him. That is an important part, again, of operating in an illegal economy. If you're in an illegal economy, you don't have recourse to external arbiters to go to when things go wrong. So if someone doesn't fulfill their part of a bargain, you can't take it to QUT, you can't take it to court. The only option most people have is violence. Most people who are in illegal activity don't like violence because, unlike Sammy the Bull, they're not very good at it. So it's better to avoid it altogether. How do you avoid it altogether? Find reliable people who you can trust. Yes, you're all crooks, but if you can trust each other, and you know they're always going to pay, you know they're always going to supply, everyone's benefiting from the good thing. And it's there in a lot of work that Adler did in America, and they found that drug dealers love a good thing and no one wants to ruin a good thing. It's not about killing people to take control, it's about everyone sharing profits and maintaining these relationships. And that's how he succeeded. He was the good thing that nobody wanted to break down. But unfortunately he got caught. So what have I done? I've actually gone to two particular data sets. One is the Fitzgerald Inquiry itself. So we have the report, but there's a lot more information in the transcripts. The transcripts are available through the Supreme Court Library's Rare Book Collection. Hopefully they're going to be online this year, later this year. And CMC have been discussing putting it all up online. We have someone from the CMC here, and if you go home and say, hey, we should really do that, I'll be very, very grateful.
We roughly paid for it.
Yes, we're only even paid, yes. The Backman is a book a semi-autobiographical book by Jack Herbert about his own life, which adds to the information that's in the report and the inquiry transcripts. In New South Wales, they have similar sorts of information that we've been using as well for the other studies, but for today we're going to concentrate just on here. And what I've got from that is the life story of Jack Herbert. Jack Herbert actually was a British body in London, and he came to Australia, he migrated, and eventually joined the Queensland Police. He was sent to, I believe it was Rockhampton or Mackay, I can't remember now which one he was at, and he saw that the bookmakers in Mackay were never being arrested. You walk straight past them in the pub. When you went to collect your meals, your counter lunch or whatever, you had to go past the bookmakers. The police were seeing them all the time. No one was getting arrested. He was not involved in it. In fact, he was never involved in any corruption until he reached the licensing branch. When he got to the licensing branch, he was transferred there. The licensing branch, by the way, is up the barracks, which is now the cinema and everything at the top of Victory Terrace there. He noticed that, as he said, there was a quid around. How do you know there was a quid around? Because there were a lot of cops there who had less money, less rank and less experience than him, who clearly had a lot more money than he did. So they must have been making that money in some way. So he thought, there's a game on, I want to be a part of it. And as he says, well, he'd never been involved in corruption before, he never had any moral qualms about it either. So he was more than happy to be involved, and he thought if everyone's going to get money, he wants a share. So he had to extort his way into the joke. The joke was the name that the police gave to their corruption network, their payments they received. In New South Wales, it was the laugh. In Queensland, it was the joke. So what he actually did one day is he went around to everybody, all the other people in the licensing branch. Licensing branch's main job was tracking down SP bookmakers, starting price bookmakers. And he let everyone know that he had a lead on a bookmaker. And he was going to hop on his motorcycle, follow this bookmaker, and arrest him today. Never mentioned any names. As it turns out, there were 2 corrupt networks happening in the licensing branch at that time. And both of them panicked, thinking, oh my God, it's going to be one of ours. We need to do something. The